9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, I'm sorry, on February 16th. This is the policy workshop of the Board of Public Works. Our board is here except for Earl, who had an emergency. And we have the mayor and our general manager, assistant general manager. We have council here, and Sharon is also here taking notes. So this is to go over the policies that were accumulated and partially completed in most cases for existing policies that we had established over the years. There's still other policies that have been listed that we haven't even gotten into yet, but these are the ones that we've had a mutual agreement that we would address. So Tom, Earl's not here, so
So do we just go right into it, or?
yeah, just go right into it.
All right.
I think what we want to do, what I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we want to go through these, and many of them are pretty much good to go, I think. And the ones, we can identify those and separate them out, and then identify the ones that need to be worked on, and then decide who's going to work on them. I was thinking if there was just a few that need working on, hopefully our policy council guys could continue to work on them primarily and then bring them to us. If it was more than just a few, that we could divide them up amongst the others of us and to work on individual policies and finish them up that way. I mean, there's no rush. There's nothing urgent about any particular policy that I'm aware of. So we could do this. We don't have to do it within the next few weeks, the next month. We could work on it as time allows. So
why don't we start to see, start with Tom P. and see if he has any that he's found in looking through it that we need to take a look at.
Why don't we go down?
Why don't we go down
Let me
to
All of them?
suggest.
Okay, that's fine.
Just
Yeah.
start. We have the list there. I don't think it's too many to go through. Some of them we can just are givens.
Right.
So
You mean just to go down the sections?
go down the various
Yeah,
policies.
all right, that's fine.
Starting with
All right, let's
board,
do that.
starting with board elections.
I guess we start
Go
at
ahead.
the very top. The one comment I had about globally is the term shall was changed to must throughout the document. And in some of the cases, it's okay. In some of the cases, it's not. Because I mean, like the one that pops to mind is, it says that you must not put
No something or other shall.
sewer lines and water lines in the same trench, and that's a shall.
Yeah, and I went through and picked some of those up.
Yeah, but I think I picked it up partway through,
Yeah.
and then there were just so many of them. I think we need to do a global look at where shall was changed to must. In many cases, it makes sense. In other cases, it doesn't.
Okay.
And
And give me an example of like what it was a must and it should be a shall. Do you
well, I
have
mean,
one?
there are things that are legal references, and like I said, one of the ones that caught my eye in particular is you cannot put water and sewer in the same trench.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was shall in the old document.
Uh-huh.
It's must in this one. But that's just one example.
I see what you're saying. Okay, that's good. That's a good point. And I'm going to put a note on that one, shall and must.
And the other global one is, just for everyone's information, is a lot of this references subchapter 170 of the code. And we had a public hearing last night. 170 is being totally rewritten. Right? And so it kind of puts us in a strange situation because, and I've read through it lightly. I have not done an in-depth review yet, but at least the chapter sessions are going to change. But there are other things that may interact.
So we have to look at the code 170 versus what we have here
Yeah, because a lot of these sections reference
Yeah,
section
okay.
170.
for the references. All right, good. All right.
I mean, those are the two big global ones, and then we can go down.
Well, I guess we can do a word search for 170 and then try to pick them up.
Yeah, it's actually all in the reference section.
Mhm.
At the bottom of each section, it says where it came from.
Hey, press, this is Mike Hoffman. If I can chime in here on those two global items, I'm the voice in the sky on the panel with your permission.
Sure, go ahead.
Just a couple things. The first on the shall versus must and may. There's actually it's a little bit deeper than that. From a legislative drafting standpoint, you should avoid the use of the word shall. It's counterintuitive because from a contractual legal standpoint, you use the word shall to denote exactly what you said, requirement and emphasis there. But when you are drafting legislation, it is, you do not want to use the word shall, which is why because this is a policy, those changes have been made. I will say, if you want to look at examples in terms of the General Assembly, you can see prior bills and prior code section that uses the word shall, but modern drafting will use the word must and may. So that's the basis for that. I think it makes sense calling out, but as we kind of refine this, the rationale is to be more consistent with current legislative drafting, and that avoids the use of the word shall. So that's the first point. The second point, the cross references that were included in the policy document are purely included so that you can understand where that language came from. The final document will not include those cross references. These are BPW policies, so the BPW policy document should make clear what those are, but all references to the other code sections will not be in the final document, so you won't have that conflict. Just some things to keep in mind as you work through.
And Mike, on the last point, that may be true. My concern is that 170 is being totally rewritten. And so what we excerpted into here may wind up being in conflict with what's in 170.
And I think when it comes to those items, again, I mean, these are beep, and this is, in the joint and the cooperation with the city as the BPW goes forward and understanding, if it's BPW utility connections policies and whatnot, they should be in the BPW policies. And as the BPW reviews and finalizes its policies, then certainly as 170 is revised, that coordination, cooperation, and communication should occur. How about that for alliteration for a Wednesday morning? It should occur to make sure that there aren't conflicts. But what I would do is I would recommend that the board review its policies and discuss what it wants policies to be. And then as it relates to final form, we will make sure that those conflicts are resolved.
Great. Thanks,
Good,
Mike.
thanks, Mike.
Sure.
Okay, so you want to go down,
Yeah.
take our list in the beginning, and the first one is,
Board
board
elections.
elections, and anybody pick up anything there?
The voter registration
Yeah.
looks fine.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that's-
so,
Can I ask a
what we
question?
could do is maybe,
You had a question.
sorry, go ahead.
I think the last time you had an election, you had to appoint a board of elections as well. Should that be a policy that you will appoint a board of elections?
Sounds like it should be. Mike, looking to.
I mean, it's not, there's nothing in here that says you're going to appoint a board of elections. And
I don't
obviously,
remember that.
we just did that last,
It's in the bylaws, though.
if it's in the bylaws, fine, but
I'm pretty sure.
You remember, Mike, whether it's in the bylaws?
It's in the charter, I think. I think that, and it may be in the bylaws, but there's definitely a requirement because every time there's an election, we have to appoint. But in terms of who that is, it's an election manager and 2 judges. I mean, it's in there in terms of how that process exists. What I would recommend on things like that, I think, for this going through this first iteration, if there are things such as, take a closer look, understand what the board of elections or what the board process is, make a note. Cam can make a note. We'll come prepared to talk about it. But just kind of going through, and is there anything you want to revisit? Is there anything you want to take a closer look? Is there anything you want to, flagging that is important. The one thing to keep in mind of the way this document is drafted is everything with a strike through. So the existing language with the cross reference is what you see on the sheet. If there's a strike through, that has been proposed to be removed. And if there's an underline in red, that's proposed to change. So when you're looking at this, the question, for example, voter registration, the question is, do you want to keep it the way it is right now? Don't touch it. Are you fine with the changes? do you want to explore it further? I mean, I think those are the three questions. So I think what the mayor is saying is, how do you handle Board of Elections? And you may want to take a closer look as to whether you do anything further. And you can flag that for future discussion.
Mike, if it's just a basic question. If it's in the charter or bylaws, does it need to be a policy?
It does not, no.
The bylaws basically are a policy, aren't they?
Mhm.
So that
It's
would.
fine
cover-
if it's there.
Yeah.
I didn't look at your bylaws.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, in this case, Board of Elections, I see, Mike, that you highlighted the first Saturday in May and the 60 days. So you were just pointing that out to see if we wanted to thought we should change it. Is that correct?
That's correct, yep.
But I think in reality, we hold our election the second Saturday in May. Usually it's Mother's Day weekend.
Oh, okay.
So are you saying they should be both the same day?
Well,
Yeah.
I would think it would
Yeah, I
make,
would think so.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a good idea.
So that should be the second.
Okay.
That's our first change.
And are you sure of that, Mayor?
I'll confirm. I'll get back to you.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure of that.
Okay, very good. Then we go on to the financial policies. And any comments on the financial policies?
Well, Mike has a note there.
Yeah, he had a note that
Yeah.
they wanted the thresholds to be reviewed.
And I suggest that go to the financial committee.
Okay.
Yeah, and I did that with a lot of things. I don't know that they all have to maybe, but I think since we're going to have a financial committee, should we pass those things on to that? I guess that's just maybe a question we should
Yes,
talk
I would
about
think
now.
so. That would be the smartest thing to do.
And Tom's comment on that sheet talked about, should it actually be should there be clarification that it's not just $5,000, but also an actual item versus a service?
Yeah,
'Cause it's-
2.1. From financial, there's many thresholds you have to meet. But it's got to be a capital good. You can't buy $5,000 worth of pencils and capitalize them, or buy $5,000 worth of engineering services.
Yeah,
So it's got to be a durable good and a dollar threshold.
okay.
So Austin, are you or Sandy, you putting this down? You're getting.
Yeah, I'm
so
writing all
We'll
of
pick them
them.
up later.
Yeah.
I have to.
Go ahead, Don.
Okay, so then if we go down through there. Anything else jumping out that
I had nothing.
I don't
Um,
either?
Actually, under 2.8 cash reserve.
Oh,
And
wait,
what
no,
page
no,
are you on?
no, I'm just saying for that first paragraph.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I was going to go, by heading.
Okay.
That's, I may not have any other, but I see disposal surplus equipment, materials and supplies. I put a note in there, needs revision, but I didn't say what that is. Oh, maybe it's the
That was a
the
dollar.
5,000, yeah, the dollar amount. That's right. Mike points that out also.
Had a question on 2.3, the budget change of
Okay, go ahead.
operating funds.
All right, go ahead.
There seems to be a conflict as I was reading. Such changes shall be reported to the board at the next regularly scheduled meeting. But transfers of appropriations of funds can only be made by an official resolution of the board. And that seems out of order somehow with the wording as I'm looking at it. It says the general manager can do it without the approval of the board, but the board needs to have an official resolution.
Oh, I think what it says though is that the first part says within an enterprise fund. And the second part is external to an enterprise fund. So you can transfer money from one electoral account to another electoral account at the GM's discretion, but he has to report it to the board. But if you wanted to transfer from electrical to water, it needs to be done with the board prior.
Oh, so that's where between funds
Yeah,
as opposed to within.
I
Okay,
had to reread it twice when
Okay.
I read it
Okay.
also.
Okay with that, Richard?
yeah, if that's
Okay.
clear enough with everybody else, I didn't, okay.
Okay, so 2.4, do we want to discuss the 5,000 now, or do you want to push some things like this on?
Well, I think I was looking for, Austin to come up with what he would suggest as given the monies. I mean, this $5,000 limit seems like it's consistent throughout various parts.
Yeah.
Should it be,
Maybe
and
more.
what is it, disposal of assets? I mean,
really on the disposal side, the only thing we're talking about is vehicles at the end of life, in which we either trade them in or we offer them up to bid to, our staff.
Mhm.
5 is low. I mean, most of everything that comes through that still has a value of $5,000. I mean, we really don't run into situations where we have equipment that's below 5.
Mhm.
Maybe more between the 10 and 20 range. I mean, it'd be basically, do I come back to the board to say, are you okay with putting this vehicle that's, depreciated over 10 years up for bid to staff before trade-in or something like that?
I think 5 seems low.
yeah, I guess I wonder if our auditors would have some guidance, because I mean, this is something that is subject to, their.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's fine. We can,
Yeah, why don't we reach out to them and see what they recommend? I certainly think $5,000 is low nowadays. Very
Yeah.
low.
yeah, that's fine. We're already in discussions with them preparing for the audit, so.
Do you know what the city's number is?
Off the top of my head, I know we have a minimum bid, we have to bid it anything that's 25,
Yeah.
but in terms of disposal, I don't know.
so anything 25 and up has to be bid.
That's right.
Uh-huh. Okay,
Okay,
Maybe besides sitting with our auditors, you can check with the city and see what their number is.
Yeah, I think we can get a number for you.
I have one minor strike through. The first sentence, the general manager of the board of Public Works of the board should be struck through also. So it says the general manager will have. It's just a housekeeping.
oh, I see what you're saying, yeah, okay.
all right.
So the strike has to continue to the left.
Yes.
I got it.
Yeah, that's all.
Uh-huh.
Sorry.
That's good, okay.
I'm looking at it and
Mhm.
saying it. And where's that coming
All right.
from?
That's fine, okay.
It is.
Anything more on there? Okay, how about 2.5, money purchase plan?
I believe this is the discussing what was the old Great West plan, what is now the nationwide defined benefits plan, which was the frozen pension.
Mhm.
The only thing that I would put in there is that it has the assistant general manager will be the coordinator of the plan. Really, that's the well, it's really 3 people, but I'm the primary contact for that plan.
Okay, and where are you? Second page?
Yeah, second.
Yeah, I got it.
Says
Okay,
the
right in the
assistant
beginning, the
manager.
second, last paragraph, okay? So the general manager,
Really, it's the general manager and the finance manager that receive it.
okay. Should we put in and finance manager,
Yeah, you can.
general manager and finance manager? Okay, we'll
And
receive
the
it.
finance manager is of the board or of Austin staff?
Staff.
Staff, okay.
Then you need to go on down in that paragraph where it talks about the assistant manager shall execute all.
Same, yeah, same thing.
Check that out, assistant.
So the money plan itself still exists as an option?
To employees?
Yes.
Well, the deferred benefits plan, which was the frozen pension plan, is frozen. So it's capped, it stopped, I want to say it was like the 2010, 11 timeframe. So that plan's frozen, meaning it's invested and there's X beneficiaries in it and there's no future beneficiaries. It's just those.
We changed plans.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, then donations.
The Form 990 is the fire department's Form 990? Okay.
Okay. Investment guidelines, 2.7.
This is all in Exhibit A, which we don't have yet. So
Right.
we got to, so the financial committee, I assume, will help develop those.
Right.
All right. Cash reserves.
I think, just for clarity, in the second, well, the first paragraph is not struck. It says the minimum reserve guidelines in the policy may be set to allow reserves to float up or down above the minimum guidelines. I think you can only float up.
Yeah.
You can't float down.
Right.
How about if there's an emergency?
Actually, somewhere else in here, it covers that, I think.
Stay tuned. What the stock market's
Yeah.
doing, you may have a different thought.
No, it's up 300 points today.
Well, it was up 400 yesterday, but the last week,
Yeah. Don't worry, we have lots of Bitcoin reserve. That's a joke.
yeah, right.
Okay, so take out down, right? Okay,
I have a couple of nitpicking points on the subsequent paragraphs.
when it starts the adequacy.
Not that one, but one below to help
Okay.
ensure.
Mhm.
The very last line, it's dependent on the life cycle assets currently. Can we add dependent in part on the life cycle of assets?
Where are you, Richard? I'm sorry.
That second paragraph, it
Okay.
starts out to help ensure timely completion.
I see.
The very last line, which starts dependent on the life cycle. Can we add in part so that the sentence reads dependent in part on the life cycle of assets?
Yeah, you could, that wouldn't make any difference, Brian.
You could also strike in the very first sentence, to help ensure, you just put to ensure. Just to.
Not the next paragraph, but the one that starts off, if certain events occur. The S is not grammatically correct.
Well, the paragraph before that one, I think it's capital lag, not capital lug. Yeah, when I catch spelling errors, that's
And also, and the second line, board will take action to restore cash reserves to the minimum levels within the next 5 years rather than over the next 5 years, giving the option to replenish it sooner. That makes sense?
In the next 5 years.
Right.
Mhm.
All right.
I'm looking at the old list that was from the prior meeting, because the new list has different page numbers and so on. At any rate, it's under risk management reserve. There's a long strike through of the first paragraph.
I mean, did we get 281 working capital ag? So we went past that, right?
Yes,
Okay, so now we're on 282. Okay,
right.
go ahead.
And where the strike through ends and it says the utility should ensure adequate cash reserves instead of utility. Wouldn't it be the board?
The Lewes BPW, the board is specifically us. Is that? Yeah, we are the
isn't that
board.
us?
Yeah, I guess it is. Yeah.
It's other than
Yeah.
utility is vague. That was all.
Yep.
And the board seemed to be a good placeholder.
On that one also, it says current FEMA guidelines suggest 2% of historic cost. Is that still valid? I mean, first of all, using historic cost seems strange because I thought it was replacement value. And 2% seems low.
Well, should we have put that to the financial committee?
Does it need to be referenced to FEMA guidelines in any event? I mean, if we're going to establish a percentage or a target here, is that relevant, even if it's accurate?
Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the things I agree with that,
Yeah.
I said, put it to the financial, if we ever get, establish a mitigation team, this may be something that in combination, the two groups could work on, because, this is fundamental to the business is, financial strength for recovery. And that's what this is really getting to.
Yeah, but you've got a 2%, which really, in my opinion, looks at like a minimum. If you put, hot 5% or any kind of a lot of higher percentage in there, now you're really hamstringing yourself because it's in the policy. So sometimes you might say, well, we need a higher one. And sometimes you might say 2% is okay.
I understand what you're saying there, but right now it says current FEMA guidelines suggests 2%, which seems like it's putting a stake in the ground that 2% is a good number.
So you're thinking it shouldn't be anything?
Maybe we shouldn't have it in there, is what you're saying, or we just refer to current guidelines.
I think it's mainly about taking a look and see if the number is relevant, whether the
Yeah,
number needs to go
yeah.
up.
But if
or
we
the number-
if we just say,
I agree.
if we just put in there that we use current FEMA guidelines, don't give a number.
Yes, I think
So,
that's a good one.
Yeah,
That's a good
that'd be
solution.
Flexible that way.
So take the 2 out and say current guidelines,
Yeah.
okay?
And I'll be glad to do some more research as to what FEMA says. But that just seems very low.
Okay. So current guidelines, that means you have to look at it, which is good. Uh-huh. All right. The capital improvement program.
The only thing that I said was, and I don't know how much it matters, but in theory, you're technically double dipping a year in your capital, because if you're taking the current year at 15% and you're taking a 5-year, you're taking the same 15% you accounted for and adding it in twice.
Right.
So,
Like at 30%.
yeah, just as a little mindful tidbit there. I don't know how, if that one should be adjusted or not.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know we talked about that
Because you're
before.
you're
but yeah.
accounting for the 1 year at
Uh-huh.
15%, then you're taking your 5-year, which already has the 1 year that you accounted for, and you're doing another 15% of that.
Mhm.
4 years.
Because theory
So,
is
so
that-
each year it's 15%.
no, so you're taking your current year.
That's what I
So
mean.
what is
Each current year is 15%.
No, you're taking your first, so there's a line item when that says current year capital improvement plan.
Right.
Which is what will be 22, 23, but it's
Oh, I
current
see.
is
Yeah,
21,
okay, right.
22.
Yeah, no,
Then you're taking the entire 5-year.
right.
doing
No, I
another
understand that,
15%.
but because you have a 15% current year, each current year you have 15%.
And then you're
So
taking,
you're accumulating the whole thing all down 5 years.
yeah,
Yeah, in a sense. If you have 15% this year and 50% next year, you're really doing the 15% over a 5-year period.
yeah, but the thought is that if you're taking your current year at 15%,
Mhm.
that's one line item, then you
Right.
drop down to the next one, and that's the 5-year. And you're taking a 15% of that, you're including the 15% of the current and the 15% in the 5-year. So
Okay.
you're using that number twice.
I understand. No, I understood all that, and I agree with you that that might be something to look into and turn it over to the finance committee. Earl's not here, so.
Sounds
But
right.
yes, no, you're in a sense, you are
Sounds
stacking the deck, in other words, yeah.
What's wrong with that?
It's
Yeah,
not-
well, that's true, I guess.
It's only money.
Okay, so we should be looking at that, and that's what we're talking about. All right. 284. Customer deposits.
Seemed okay.
Okay,
Mhm.
Should there be any statement in there about when deposits are refunded? Or is that covered elsewhere?
I
I was
think it's covered
gonna
elsewhere.
say, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
285, self-insurance. I have some questions on that one, and somebody else might also.
Go ahead.
Well, one, self-insurance is a nice term for not, yeah,
No insurance.
No insurance.
no insurance, right? So my concern here is shall include 100% of the amounts identified. I think that the word identified might help us there because you're specifically identifying specific things that you're calling self-insurance, that you're assuming. So, because the way it could be read is you're in real trouble if you don't have enough money for it's an unfunded loss is what it is. And it could be a catastrophe, something happens that you don't have listed as self-insurance, but you are self-insuring because it happened.
So you're just suggesting that we identify things?
Well, I think maybe, we can talk to Mike about this. Maybe I'll ask Mike. Because I don't want to, my concern is to be locked into something where you're in real trouble because you have violated your policy, because you have an unfunded loss that you don't have a reserve for.
So would it be better to have the current insurance, just take out self-insurance, put current insurance deductibles, and then expand our conversation with HMS about flood insurance and pollution insurance?
In other words, we should either identify specifically identify which items are self-insurance. Let's just say pollution. All right. We've decided we're going to self-insure pollution. So you either have to specify what you're self-insuring to be 100%, or you've got to put something that's not going to require you to have 100% of anything. You see what I'm saying? So if we identify, we've already identified deductibles as a specific self-insured item. So we can chalk that up. Then we can say pollution. Now,
So-
you don't know what the number is.
But you're suggesting then we identify what we're not.
Either we identify it or we
self-insuring.
set it up so that we don't have to identify it, but that we just create a self-insurance fund to take into consideration potential
That's fine.
unfunded losses or some, whatever the wording is, has to be from a legal standpoint. Yeah.
Tom,
Yeah.
Tom, this is Mike. You're spot on. I wholeheartedly agree with Tom Owen's suggestion. I think that what would make sense here is if we're going to have this as a policy requiring the board to fund the full amount, that you identify specifically what you are required to fund, because Tom's spot on. It could otherwise come back to bite you.
So that would be your recommendation to identify, leave this as it is.
What
Have
about,
a list of identified items.
or take it out and say, we're put some kind of wording in there that says we will attempt to have a self-insurance fund to take care of potential unfunded losses.
Isn't that too vague? I mean, how do you, at least identifying things?
Well, let's just say you identify pollution. All right. Who's going to set the number?
Then Rick.
That's why I said, does it make more sense to entertain the idea of having an insurance policy on pollution and flood? And then including the deductible into this so that there is no
Yeah.
question on
Well,
self-insurance.
And then you could put the deductibles for sure.
Right.
That you, as a specific item, so you can total all your deductibles and say, okay, now we got $100,000 of deductibles spread over. That the other thing to think about is you only have one at a time now. You're not going to have a flood and a fire deductible. Well, you could possibly.
Yeah.
But just trying to think of something, you wouldn't have a flood deductible and also an earthquake deductible or whatever. So you can identify the deductibles so that it makes sense. But to try to identify a number for unfunded losses is not easy.
Yeah, I guess my question is that how does 2.85 interact with 2.82, which is basically unfunded risk?
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, I agree with you, but in my mind, we don't insure against storm damage, hurricane damage, which is why I was pushing back on the 2% number
Right.
as being insufficient. And you're getting to the same point here, but we don't even count deductibles or anything else there.
Right. Well, hurricane would be a perfect example. It's going to be an unfunded loss. And trying to set a number there is unbelievably hard.
Well, but there are industry standards for, suggestions for that, so.
What I would suggest, I think you have a number of issues here at play. I think the difference between 2.82 and 2.85 is 2.85 says that the board will make sure cash reserves have 100% of this. And so then the question becomes, if you don't, does that set off a list of dominoes? Where I think at the end of the day, the purpose of the cash reserve policy is to guide decisions in setting how much your cash reserves are. And so drafting this in a way that says, look at your unfunded obligations, look at your self-insurance obligations, but not saying that you're going to 100% some vague open number unless you're going to specifically identify it. I think that's Tom's concern. And
Even if you did identify it, my other concern is, let's say you identified a hurricane. Well, how are you going to get a number for that? I know they're guidelines, but But if you say 100% and you screw it up, now you violated your policy. So I would like to take that. I'd like the wording to change so that you don't have to be 100% of unfunded losses, which you have no idea what they might be.
Right, because
Yeah.
right now it says examples of flood insurance, wastewater, pollution.
Right,
I mean, it's not definitive.
Yeah.
It just says these are examples,
right.
but not all inclusive. So,
Mhm.
You could go on for a long way with that.
right.
Yeah,
So I agree with you 100%
okay.
on that.
So I would like to reword it to take out the 100% and reword it to the degree that we will attempt to have a self-insurance or reserve pool for unfunded losses.
For specific items. Put boundaries around them.
Yeah,
Should we
What if
just,
you-
should we
yeah.
just throw that on to Mike and let him
Yeah.
resolve it?
okay.
Mike, you understand what we're trying to do here. Maybe you could word it
Can you,
appropriately.
sorry.
Yep.
can you
I
change
understand.
100% to include an appropriate amount? Which is vague, but
Mhm.
That's,
Yeah,
that's,
appropriate means that what if you're really off?
well, let's let Mike take a shot at it and see what we think.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
While you were doing that discussion, Tim Richard posted a couple of questions about 2.8.4 regarding holding of deposits, the length of, and are you paying interest?
That's all spelled out in the electric tariff.
That's what I figured it
Mhm.
was.
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that, okay, thank you.
And then Kim had a question about the capital improvement program. She said it's the 15% of the remaining 5-year capital.
I think it's 15% of the entire. I mean, that's how it's worded.
I'm sorry, where were we?
That was on the cash reserve policy. It says 5-year capital improvement and renewal plan. So that's how I read it. I'll look into the details on that one.
Okay.
It's just a clarification on that 15 split, where it's 15 of the 5-year, 15% of the 5-year and 15% of the current year. Her question was, is it 15% of the current year and then 15% of the rest of the 5-year, or is it only the 4 years that are left?
Mhm.
She's recommending maybe changes to the second line. Just rewording it.
Rewording the 5-year? Remaining, in other words, the remaining 4 years. Maybe.
I'm saying rewording the second line to say include 15% of the remaining 5-year capital.
Okay. But I'd like to, I would recommend that the Finance Committee look at the whole thing about the potential of double dipping here, because
Well,
Well, what Kim's saying is it would eliminate the double dipping, but if it would be better for that to go to the finance committee and Kim and I can work through
Yeah,
that.
that's a good
fine.
idea.
we'd
Okay.
already decided that whole
Yeah.
thing was going to
Okay.
go to the finance committee.
All right,
Thanks, Kim.
so we're at 2.9, right?
Yes.
Lien forbearance.
I had a couple nitpicking things again. On this second paragraph, when the utility rents, et cetera, second line, connection with a special utility project. Can that be changed to specific utility to minimize specialness?
Where are you? I'm the second
Second
paragraph.
line of 2.9. Second paragraph of 2.9.
Notice of lien, property owners. They mentioned board of directors. They're before.
Second line down.
Okay.
Connection with a special utility project, and he wants to put in specific.
He wants to change the word special to specific.
Mhm.
Sense.
Does make sense.
On 3 paragraphs down, starting the general manager. Delete of directors. Will inform the board.
Board, yeah, we don't use that. Yeah, okay. Good pick.
And the last paragraph, well, I'm reading the last paragraph on this, on page I'm reading, it's under 2.10. So let's stop. I won't, there's nothing else that I have in 2.9.
Okay, 2.10.
The paragraph that remains,
Excuse me, I have both these 29, 29 and so forth, going to the financial committee too. Should we just to do that or you think-
it's just,
you think?
it's
we're okay?
grammar.
No, but I think in
Okay.
general, do we want them to review these sections anyway, even though we're making
Fine.
these changes?
Fine.
I'm just, that's just
Yep.
a question I have out there.
Well, but if you have grammar changes, that.
Yeah, let's do it now.
So go ahead.
Let's do it now. Yeah, but I'm just saying we'd still turn them over,
Yeah.
those over to the financial committee.
And you said 2.9 and 2.10, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so far,
Yeah.
so far.
In that paragraph, starting the Lewes BPW in its sole discretion.
Mhm.
1, 2, 3, 4 lines down. Properties shall include, the S should be removed.
Properties including.
No, just include. May include, you know, properties include any, and they exclude any.
Oh.
2 lines down.
Tom,
The S's get removed.
I think Tom had a comment that was similar to that.
That's been already.
Okay,
And the last 2 lines, it's a run-on sentence. To my mind, and the line that starts and is responsible for the complete costs. And such property owners will be responsible for the complete costs.
so and such property owners.
Yes, will be responsible instead of and is.
Okay. Okay,
I'm sorry. My comment on 210 in the second paragraph. In my mind, it's not clear because it says that established properties, blah, 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 altered from the natural state by the substantial permanent improvements. But what about infill? I mean, if you have 10 houses and 1 lot in the middle, does it fall into this policy or not? Because we said such as buildings or structures that render the property suitable for residential or commercial use. I mean, either it needs to be reworded so that it's more general to cover that this is within a contiguous area.
What wording would you like to see again, Tom?
Well,
Hey,
I
Tom,
get-
well, maybe just to assist this discussion, some context of this. This was related, I believe, to Savannah Place. It was one of maybe Highland Acres, but it was the concept here is that the code currently says when property is developed, obviously the board's policy is that the developer pays for the extension of the utility costs. What this was setting forth is that if a property was already developed, the community already existed, we wanted a mechanism that provided ability for reimbursement. And that was all geared towards reducing the impact on those residential homes that were existing. So we had to walk a fine line in terms of making clear that it's going to apply to already developed, established developments and did not and would not be used as to apply to undeveloped property that is being developed. That's the context of this section.
And I got that. It's just that these wording, so maybe changing it from established properties to established communities, established neighborhoods, or something along those lines. Because in my mind, when you're talking about property, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're talking about an individual tax lot.
And that's correct, but keep in mind, Tom, so then if you have, you know, hypothetically speaking, 16 homes that aren't in a neighborhood, you also want the policy to apply.
Yes. So
Hypothetically.
that there are 15 of those 16 that have houses on them, and the 16th lot is a vacant. Because, I mean, we have a lot of those in town.
You're probably gonna have
But-
some.
But I think in that, right, and so in that situation though, yeah, no, it's a fair in terms of, so if you want to make clear that you encompass them, we can take a closer look at this. I think I understand the intent of your comment, Tom, but you want to be clear that you capture what you want to capture and not more than that. But we can take a closer look.
We don't want this to run over into subdivisions, developments, those type of things, but also walk that line.
So
I think you got
Mike's
that.
going to review that paragraph.
Yeah.
Okay.
that's good.
That's the
Okay.
solution.
The next page, well, continues. Anything along those lines that relate to 210?
Mhm.
I have a note here that this should just apply to residential properties that are one EDU, so that we have commercial or other, it would not apply.
It's 2 EDUs.
Be too,
You know, like the small number rather than just limiting it to 1. You know, somebody adds to make a second unit on that particular developed or partially developed property. I mean, it's we're trying to not pull it into the large scale developer.
Well, rather than
purview.
using EDU, how about using the first word you said, which is residential? Because that would exclude the commercial, industrial.
but just residential EDU, use that throughout? Would that do it?
Does there have to be a limit of 1 residential?
Well, either that or
EDU?
we define EDU definitions. So it's clear. We're having problems with an EDU right now, you know, with the brewery using EDUs.
Oh,
I think later on,
Yeah.
we added a paragraph in here that defines that it's either volume or loading.
Well, it does say in the following paragraph that at the completion of the work, the Lewes BPW will assess the owner of such, it does say of such EDU, an amount equal to the EDU's proportional share of the cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was one of the new sections that was added at the end. Let me search.
If you do
Yeah,
that,
and one of the benefits of this exercise and why kind of doing a comprehensive review is necessary is because keep in mind when this policy was adopted, it was a standalone resolution. Now you're actually seeing how these policies work in conjunction with other definitions.
Yeah.
And all of this is important to make sure it's clear. And so to your point, Press, making sure that the intent here is it applies just to residential, but then also to your point, Tom Panetta, making sure that as you all review, that there aren't conflicts in definitions. It's a large undertaking for sure, but that's why having this comprehensive review makes sense.
Well, would it be better, again, to have this in a definition someplace, what an EDU is? Or is it better, that way we wouldn't have to define it each time we come across it?
Probably a good idea.
Yep, no, I agree. But the key in doing that is just making sure that when you do that, that definition does hold true for every section. But yes, I otherwise agree.
It says an EDU is defined as any developed property located within a project area at the moment.
Yeah,
It
but,
needs to be updated.
yeah,
Okay,
because we
okay.
start basing flows on EDUs, then it gets confused like it did with the brewery.
Right.
Then we go to page 8 to 11. 5-year capital budget. And
Again, I have these just marked as turn them over to the financial committee.
Right.
For,
211 and 212.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Utilities, electric, tariff. We have, they're pretty well spelled out, aren't they? Austin, in their, in our electrical tariffs and all the rest of it.
Yeah, but that's gonna all be updated theoretically after the board makes a decision on Dawn's rates, because you'll have to go back to the tariff if we come back with a single industrial rate instead of it changing. So that it's a fixed per KW rate. And then you're also gonna have to do it on the PPCA. And then I believe there's also fees laid out that are in the electric tariff that would have to be adjusted. So
Okay.
The tariff makes it a little bit more complicated. It's one extra step.
So, but relative to this particular item 3.1, so you're attaching it as an exhibit, so that will take care of that, right?
Yes.
Well,
And
that's my question. Should the rates actually be in the policy, or should they be in the exhibit?
I agree.
It's gonna
I
raise
agree
that.
100%. I mean,
Yeah.
That's my
Some-
concern about the whole thing.
Somehow also reference that the rates can change or either at other times, or some reference to a description of, hey, current rates are published on the website.
well, I would
Because there
almost-
is that, we're in that
I-
environment with all of the entities, the wastewater and so on.
I
They've
would
got
almost
lists and-
rather they be taken completely out of the
I agree.
policy document.
Yeah.
And just a reference to where you can find them.
Exactly.
Because, I mean, from an engineering world, you only want numbers in one place. Otherwise you wind up
Right.
Well,
in
And that
conflict.
was my
Well, if you
concern
put them
about
as an
the whole
exhibit to
thing.
the policy and then
Yeah.
refer to the exhibit, you got them there, and it's easy just to go and see that exhibit.
Right.
And you can have the exhibit on the webpage and wherever people look for it.
As long as they're joined at the hip,
Yeah,
not.
but you're only doing it once. It's in the policies, our policies. But we can show the exhibit other places where people don't have to go through the whole policy to find it.
Right. My concern also was that the charts that are in the policies all the way through should be taken out and put it into an exhibit, because every time you want to change the rate, you got to go back and change your whole policy.
That's why you don't put it in a policy.
That's my point. That's
Yeah.
why I would take all those charts and everything else out of there and put them on a separate exhibit.
That's what
You
we
should you should just publish a table,
a rate schedule.
a rate schedule.
Yeah,
fee
but
chart.
you can make it in the policy. You can say,
Just refer to it.
refer to the rate policy.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Have it here.
That's
and
all
then
you need
place
to
else
have.
you want to use it.
Right, exactly. That's okay, good.
Okay.
So electric tariffs, that's exhibit B. Anything else under 3.1.2 or?
Actually, under 3.1.2, .1, middle of the first paragraph, it says residences used principally or commercial purposes such as rooming or boarding rentals may not be served under this rate schedule. And so where does Airbnb rent fall? How would you track it? I mean, this is becoming, I mean, I know the city's dealing with it. This is becoming more of a major issue because the term principal and boarding rental seems to me to be a vague term here. I don't know what we want to do.
Wait, you're saying that the fact that the commercial would be separately metered is a problem, or?
Well, what I'm saying is that if you own a house and you put it out principally as an Airbnb,
Right,
you're not allowed to use residential rates.
It's a mixed use property at that point.
yeah,
I mean, that's what this says.
right. But
How
why
would
would
we,
you,
how would we enforce that?
well,
How
that's,
would we
yeah.
track it?
Mhm.
And what rate does it fall under?
So in other words, you charge the Airbnb at a different rate.
Perhaps.
Mhm.
I'm just saying that
I mean, as an example. you
Right
could
now,
do
that
yeah.
question is,
So we don't have to have people file an Airbnb with the city? Do they have to file with them?
Well,
The
what
good-
we have, we've gone with the host group to
Yeah.
identify anybody who has a rental, who may not have a rental license, but we have, a number of properties that have filed rental licenses, but we don't have any information right now as to who's short-term and who's long-term. That's what we don't have. And that's one of the things that we're going to appoint the ad hoc committee that we talked about the other night, is do we differentiate in terms of gross rental receipts tax, what the tax might be for a short-term rental versus a long-term rental?
The internet, you can go on the internet to look up Airbnbs and everything
That's
else.
only
and
part
look.
of the list though, Tom.
Pardon
That's only part of the list.
Yes,
The
of course,
list is
but I
quite
mean, it
large.
gives you a start.
Oh, yeah, and we're already doing that, but we've already done some of that.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad because
But-
that's,
There's another thing that you might want to consider here, going prospectively. What are you going to do with EVs? You're going to charge EV, people who have an at-home, a residential EV charging station, you're going to charge them a residential rate, or you're going to charge them a commercial rate?
well, yes, that's left to be seen because I mean, it all depends upon,
But I mean, that's a
Many,
question. I think, it's a new policy that you're going to have.
Why would you charge them as a commercial rate?
It's the time of use is where this. comes
actually,
into
Yeah,
it
the
wouldn't
time
be a
of use
commercial,
that
it'd be
we're
more,
more
I
concerned
think
about.
it would be more under
Separate rate.
AMI time of use.
Yeah. You're different than renting out the car.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if you're an Uber driver, how would that come in? And then you're getting into that, I guess.
Because just because you're an Airbnb doesn't mean that you're principally an Airbnb. I mean, if I rent my house out for a week,
I think
on
that's going to be very
Airbnb.
hard to police.
yeah, so I just think the wording on this needs to be looked at from an enforcement perspective.
well, there's a a rooming house.
Are there any rooming houses now?
Boarding houses are, are pretty different than an Airbnb.
No.
I think the last one you really had is going under massive renovation right now. So
So what are you suggesting, Tom?
That we relook at the wording on this as to why,
Another boarding and rooming.
yeah,
you may just strike that whole thing.
Okay,
right. I mean, if it was to say residents used principally for commercial purposes, may not be under this, that would be better. It's just when you start adding in those other ones, because
Sharon, can you check the question? See if there's any.
Just,
residences for commercial purposes.
just small housekeeping under the rates. The last paragraph, in addition to charges by the BPW, it should be Lewes BPW.
And where are you? I'm sorry. I was
Back on 3.1.2, the rates,
okay.
third paragraph. In addition to charges by the BPW, substitute Lewes BPW just as consistency.
Yeah.
And just to add to that discussion, the complexity is in the electric tariff, it clearly states the disconnect, the reconnect. So it's clearly states fees in there. So you can't just go in and say, I'm going to change this fee, because then you got to go in and change the electric tariff. So that's one of those where maybe it makes sense to pull all labeling of fees out and have a single fee
Yeah.
chart,
Yeah,
because the complexity of going in and modifying isn't as simple as saying, we identify that we're not, covering cost at this and we want to change this. It's a lot different when you have to go back in and change the
Correct.
tariff. That's one
So-
of those that maybe that goes back to,
yeah.
maybe we should establish that at the finance committee level, pull that all out at one time, create a fee chart.
So here's an idea, we did have the finance committee take a look at all the fees and charges in the policy and say, okay, we're going to be exhibit here and exhibit there or whatever.
All fees,
Yeah.
not just the tariff. and
No,
electric
I
side,
understand
all
that. So we
fees.
would take it out of here.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it would add to your transparency.
Yes.
Yep.
Mhm.
One place that somebody can go and see all.
No, I agree.
fees,
It's a great idea. So
instead
we'll
of having
take
to go
all
to
that stuff
one
out.
place or another place.
The only suggestion on that is again, I mean, the source of the fee should be a singular location. And so if the source of all electric fees comes from the tariff, then all you would do here in 3.1.1 would be, tariff exhibit B, and that's that. To Austin's point, when you are, from a transparency standpoint, when you're summarizing, you would compile from all of the sources on the website and just list all fees. That's more of a communication piece. For the policy document, it should refer to where the source is. If it's the tariff, that's great. Keep it simple, only reference the tariff and don't duplicate the effort. But if in the policy, it's for when you get to, different fees, the water fees, what's the source of that? And that's what you should reference. There should be one source.
So what would you say? So electric is 3.1.
Just the tariff.
See the tariff.
Right, so it would say, just say 3.1.1 tariff, electric tariff can be found on exhibit B, and that's it. You don't reference the rates or anything else if it's set by the tariff. Let the tariff speak for itself.
Okay, I have it. Yeah, all right. Good. 3.1.2, next page, commercial, a small general electric service.
Again, I just put down, have the policy committees take a look at it. If you have any additional suggestions, then throw it back to us.
On
Okay.
the third paragraph, what's a school's orphanages? On the first sentence. I didn't understand that.
I think
Wait,
it's supposed to be apostrophe after school, and then somehow got an apostrophe S in there. Looks like to me.
But I've never seen orphanages in any of the other wording or listings. It seemed odd.
Probably a carrier from.
Which
Right,
paragraph?
right,
are you-
right here.
Oh, yeah,
Third
okay.
paragraph.
See, we're after
Mhm.
school
First sentence.
service to schools.
Right, there it is. Okay, and orphanages.
Should,
Obviously, this is, our
same as boarding houses. Should we take it out?
Yeah,
1906, do we have orphanages here?
I'm not aware of any. We
And
also don't have any theaters here.
and there's a reference in the fourth line to commercial telephone directory listing, which seems onerous or out of date.
Why don't you just change it to a business license? Rather than,
Carrying a business license.
yeah, establishment having a business license.
So, business, professional, or commercial business license.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think there are such things as telephone directories anymore.
I think I get one every year. I do. It's, I don't know,
Okay,
There's nothing in it.
nothing in it now.
anything more on that section? Taking out the charges. Okay, industrial large commercial electric service.
Are these named limits still accurate? Or does that fall into the issue of making a tariff schedule and
Yeah.
that sort
I've
of?
circled it as taking it out and going and being put into the whole rate fee
Right, yeah.
structure. Yeah.
I mean, that concept applies to, again, water, electric,
Everything.
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 Yeah. Anything more on that page?
On 3.1.3, underground electric lines,
Mhm.
it's grammar again, third line, dropped lines, mean, singular. Yes, goes out.
Out S, okay. All
On-
right,
On the second paragraph, unless expressly authorized, who pays for the relocated, extended, or reinstalled drop lines in that case?
They're the homeowners, aren't they? Or the establishments.
Yeah, somewhere, I don't know where it states it, but it
It's not
states,
clear here.
it states that, I know I've seen it written somewhere, that for underground drops, the customer is responsible
Yeah.
for a cost for the cable up to the pole and with adequate length to get up the pole.
Correct.
I don't know where that is.
there,
Is that in
well,
the electric
I
tariff?
remember we went through this in depth and we came up with it with depending on how far away it is and whether it's new or, I mean, the big thing was, are you expanding your house? If
Yeah.
you expand your house, everything has to go underground.
Where do we put that? Is that?
We
that's
did
not-
that.
Yeah,
in
but
the-
I'm just asking.
It's
Austin.
in the,
It's in here somewhere further on.
You know,
Because it is defined, it's just, but
Yeah.
to your point is.
but
it should be
in practice, it's not happening.
It's not.
Always. I could show you a house on on the beach that was expanded, that the line is still overhead
And they.
Was that, when was it done?
about 3 years ago.
I think
Well,
that's when we came
yeah,
across it.
2019 is when the policy was
Yeah.
set forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think
maybe it just fallen.
I think that brought it to the head even.
Maybe.
It was a project on the beach.
So
Exactly.
Yeah.
is that a policy or a resolution?
19-002 is the policy.
Okay, and what is it under? I mean, would it be under here?
It's under resolution. It's noted on here. I mean, at the bottom of the reference, if you go to the next page, it says board resolution 19-0.
Oh, okay.
But shouldn't it be in here?
Yeah, I see the 19-002.
Shouldn't it be part of this policy here?
Yeah.
They shouldn't have to go looking for a resolution. I think we should upgrade.
So
the
in other
wording
words,
here.
yeah, in
We
other
can,
words,
because the resolution goes through, and I believe that's where it references the cost is bared by the homeowner, unless, and then they would have to make a claim for what would deem as hardship or the
Mhm,
ability for an overhead line isn't practical.
Why don't we just put a note here to add the resolutions wording into the policy here, so we have it
what's the number?
in one place?
19-002.
19002.
It's right there at the end of the,
It's right, yeah, it's right there in the document.
It's referenced, but it's not,
Okay.
don't you think it should be part of the text though?
And
Yeah, this is Mike. No, 100% agree. And so no, the resolutions themselves shouldn't be separated. So if that cross references a resolution and the full resolution isn't included, then that's a mistake. So we want to make sure that all of that resolution is included within that policy item.
Okay.
Okay, so that's going to change that by adding the resolution. The wording, right? Okay,
do you want to leave the possible consideration of economic as a reason for waiving this requirement?
It's actually in the resolution.
I know, but do you want to leave that?
We need it. I mean, aren't we adding that?
It's already here. It's already in the resolution. According to what Tom said.
But
I mean, you've got the topographical reasons and other identifiable conditions such as physical or economic. My question is, if someone's doing, as Tom suggested, an expansion of a house is an economical reason, is an economical reason for applying viable?
Isn't that part of the resolution though? Is it?
The resolution, I believe, is an upgrade of service or the relocation of a meter
Period.
or a new construction.
So it doesn't say economic.
No, it doesn't. Because I think the question was, how do you tie it to it? How do you tie the economic? Is it like a renovation over $50,000 or over $25,000?
oh, no. But this here it says that we can waive making it underground
For,
because of economic reasons.
if they apply for an economic reason
If they apply for a waiver.
for a waiver.
Waiver, right. Yeah.
But do you want to give that waiver? Let an economic reason be the reason for a waiver? Somebody who's, taking down a cottage and putting up a very large structure?
I guess one of the thoughts is that if you're on one side of Savannah and you have to go to the other side of Savannah, opening a state road.
That was the economic thing was the reason that was used in the house that I referred to.
Right, but but that was something,
I'm just
that's
telling
at our discretion.
Yeah.
To not allow that.
Yeah.
And, but, if you came and said, I have to open a
Yeah.
state road,
Right.
that's a different thing.
Okay.
I mean,
I just
sort
raise
of-
it
Yeah,
because
because then we can just say, we'll accept it or we won't accept it, and then,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, stormwater. So the tariff is attached, and then that's 3.2.
they plan to go 60 feet. under
1
the
and
dunes.
3.22 is rates. And this is where we would just take these rates out.
My suggestion is to review the tariff per the discussion with Dawn.
That's a good
Right, yeah.
idea. Okay.
That's my personal opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
All righty. Then we move on to 332, obligation to connect to water system. Other than what's changed here, are there any other comments? All right. Then move on.
So,
Move on to, okay. Three water main connections.
So just as a point here, this is where it jumped out at me. The second paragraph from the end says no water pipe must be placed in the same trench. So first of all, grammatically, that's incorrect.
Right.
Second of all, from an engineering perspective, you cannot unless you meet other requirements like concrete encasement or whatever. This was the one that jumped out at me that
Oh, wait, where are you?
no connection.
oh, I'm sorry. I'm on.
You're water main connection.
We're at 333.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I
Okay.
jumped ahead.
But no connection with water main shall tend to will.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Must be made, yeah. Okay. Water meters. Okay. Curb stops and house cutoff.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to add something in here for fire suppression, because in the detail for fire suppression, there's a separate curb stop that's labeled fire.
Okay,
So we have to develop a new section for that,
I would,
for fire.
fire, set up, in
Suppression.
other words, a new paragraph for fire suppression.
mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, set up new.
Point.
That's good, yeah.
But I think the city's adding the fire suppression stuff under 170.
It's-
Right, we are.
This kind of references 191. I understand 170 is further down that it could probably be added to there.
Okay,
Yeah, because the city only added it for new,
Only for new construction.
yeah. So there's still an issue for people who put fire suppression in existing homes.
Right.
That's what, so the detail that was established by GMB and the BPW clearly states those different circumstances. So one of the things we said, and, you know, I made Mike aware of, is putting in the code that there's no direct wording that tells how it should be done, but more to refer to a BPW standard and spec, which we update so that you don't have two conflicting documents. So that it basically just says, please refer to BPW standard spec. And then that would refer back to standard spec for fire suppression, which has that detail. And that detail clearly states how the circumstances would be.
well, what about then putting that in here and saying something to the effect, refer to exhibit, whatever, fire suppression exhibit?
Well, are we adding a new paragraph here totally on fire suppression?
But,
I think we should.
Yeah,
okay,
why don't you,
You've got two components with fire suppression. You got a commercial and you got a residential.
Correct.
so could we just say that you guys will prepare that, Austin,
Yeah, we can.
for the board's approval?
so then you would just, and that just, and the paragraph would only have to say, refer to fire suppression exhibit, so-and-so.
Well, we'll reference the,
And then every time fire suppression is put in any of these policies, we would refer to that. That way you don't have to have a new paragraph every time you're referencing it. Just, I mean, it's the city code 170, and then you've got 191.5 and so forth and so on. You wouldn't even have to say that. You would just say, refer to fire suppression exhibit B or whatever it is.
I know, let's let Austin draft it up.
Okay,
Because you
all
got
righty.
two different authorities that can enforce that.
Yes,
One is
I know.
one is the city's stuff, the city's review, and the other one is the fire marshal's review for
Mhm.
commercial.
Okay, water service pipes.
on that one.
On the third paragraph, no water service pipe must be placed.
May.
Can you change that to may?
or will, either one, something, but this is, like I said, this is where it jumped out at me.
Right.
Hi, press. Sorry to interrupt. I actually do have to jump on an airplane now, so I am going to log off. But if there are any questions, I'm certainly happy to follow up.
Have fun.
We'll send you our list of musts and mays.
Yeah.
Perfect. I look forward to it.
Have a safe
Uh,
trip.
We,
Jumping
Thank
on
you.
is better than jumping off.
Thank you.
All right. See you, Mike.
so May that's good. Anything else there on that one? Water bills? Okay.
Right.
And on the next page, resale. Or requested disconnects. Or prohibited practices. All right. And the next
Oh,
page,
I'm sorry, on the prohibited practices.
yeah,
The first line, and I don't know if it's just me or if we need clarification, but it says, no person other than Lewes BPW or a person authorized by it may operate a curb stop. Who is a person authorized? Is it licensed plumbers
contractor
or?
might be.
Well, I mean, is there a list? I mean, how do we know? I
Well, like
mean,
Caswell, you have him out
Caswell
there
does
doing
that all the
something.
time.
Yeah, I understand, but do we have something
We
that
keep a list.
documents?
Yeah, I don't know if we keep a list.
Why would we individually authorize somebody to do one? You wouldn't give them a flag.
I don't, that's my
Authority.
question is, because I'm not sure whether Caswell has a blanket authorization if he's gonna work on,
I don't think there's a blanket authorization.
because I mean, if the house stop, the house main shut off is leaking, they go and they shut off the curb stop
Right,
to replace it.
right.
Do they contact us every time?
To say yes would probably be stretching the truth.
Well, you don't want to be too specific. This says a person authorized, period.
Well,
If they're doing it, they're not authorized, then there's a, if somebody finds out about it, it's a problem. But if you say, start putting Caswells in or everything.
I don't mean, no,
Oh.
I mean,
A license.
licensed electrician, licensed
Um,
plumber, licensed electrician, yeah, licensed plumber. It just, it raised a question in my mind, we're calling it out in the policy.
I would,
But
I
yet,
would probably take
If
it.
someone questioned
I think
whether
you
this
want it to be
person
as
was
general as
authorized
you
or
can.
not,
I would keep it I would keep it as it would be under the purview of the BPW, unless otherwise stated or something along those lines. So there isn't
Okay.
a running list.
all right, I just,
It's a good catch.
We might even have a fire department who needed to do it.
Well, that's the side part, is not fire
Mhm.
suppression with a separate curb stop in some cases.
Not everybody with a license would be necessarily authorized by BPW to do it anyway. Just because they have the license, a plumber's license. or-
That's why I said I would keep it entirely under the purview of the BPW unless
Yeah.
otherwise.
No person
Designate.
authorized. They gotta be authorized.
Right.
Okay, anything more there? All right, next page is pretty well taken out, and then, so the chart will go into an exhibit.
Yep.
Okay. Page 17, sewer laterals. Any comments there?
Down near, I don't know, it's the second visible paragraph, starting with no service or house connection. Again, housekeeping. In the third line says Board of Public Works, should be Lewes BPW, just for consistency.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we could say every time you see, when you do this, your
Yeah,
sophisticated
Right.
check, just anytime you see that, say, put Lewes
Yeah.
BPW. Okay. Okay.
Those specifications we have, are they up to date?
The specifications in this,
Yeah, no.
you mean
that
our
we're going,
standard
that we're
spec?
going to, yeah, that we're going to attach to here
Yes, ours are.
Uh,
They're updated.
regularly.
Yeah.
Okay. Business continuity plans.
That's all new.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying that this should be, since we have an annual requirement in here, somehow the office should be able to flag that on a yearly calendar. Otherwise, it'd be forgotten and not done.
So should we put in there reviewed annually?
No, it says that, but I'm just saying that there should be some place that is memorialized.
Oh, I see what, yeah.
Maybe
okay.
Sharon has it as a year scheduled. It'll pop up in her schedule to notify.
On
Is there a
the,
specific time frame you want to be in?
I think you have to work that out with Austin, but yeah.
I put it on the back of the GM report and lists all the dates for the year. So I can add that in, like the strategic plan, the O&M budget, all that stuff's labeled out for a year.
And is that designated in a month or review the first quarter or what?
You're talking about the business continuity.
Reviewing anything like this
I think that's
by the first quarter, then the first quarter or the end of the second month or of the new year or what?
I think it's the discretion of the board. How often do you want it reviewed?
Well, I would think in something like this or anything like this, you would want to review it no later than the first quarter of the new fiscal year.
And you can keep it so that it's the same, that review happens the same time as like quarterly financials.
Yeah, fine.
It just says
Yeah.
must be renewed annually. If you want to,
If you want it more than annually, then
No, annually, no later than the end of the first quarter, let's say.
but does it really matter when? As long as it's sometime in a year, every time, it might be a busy time in the first quarter.
Yeah, it could be, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna make the same comment. I
Yeah.
think
I don't care when it's done.
as long as it's on a
done.
yearly basis,
Yeah.
it's not tied to elections or anything
Yeah.
else. So I would say
At their
leave it
discretion.
to Austin and Sharon's discretion as to what time they want to set is their slower point.
Then I'm only suggesting that whenever you decide it, if you don't set something about said within a certain time, it can easily get passed.
No, that's what I'm saying. They put it and then put it on an annual calendar that's always on the same period, but let them decide.
Oh, yeah, okay, I see. So
when
that's
that
fine.
is,
So
yeah.
you're going to insert that in there. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's good. Okay. Extending service.
I have a few housekeeping items, but in general, does this section need to be revised to properly reflect the mayor and city council approval sequence for providing service?
I would just reflect the charter.
It just reflected, yeah.
Yeah.
The wording seemed, I was picking up that it's largely BPW that receives the application
They were-
and
they-
passes on it,
They would receive you all would receive the application for utilities,
right?
but the application for annexation would come to the city.
And we, as part of what the MOU spells out and the change in the charter, we would not discuss anything as far as extension of the utilities until prior written consent from council, whether it be for a pre-annexation agreement, annexation, or a waiver.
Or a letter requesting service.
Correct.
Okay, this is a paragraph that says extending service. And is that kind of wording, I don't know, preamble appropriate before what's written here?
I would rewrite this entire paragraph, or this entire
Okay.
section. Because
Okay.
you can literally take the portion of the charter and put it into this.
Right.
And it
Clarifies
does,
it.
it synopses everything.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
you also want to change the word petition in the first paragraph to
Yeah.
apply.
You'll prepare a revised section for the
It's
board's
only
approval.
one paragraph.
Okay.
Right.
All righty.
So the revision reflects the first paragraph and the rest stays? Because the rest has my housekeeping items.
How it happens.
Wait a minute. What are you're talking about doing the whole thing, aren't you? Were you saying the whole paragraph?
Well, I
The
know
whole
that
extending service paragraph, or were you just talking about that initial paragraph.
The second paragraph is the same thing because
That gives. I mean, to me, we shouldn't be discussing annexation
No.
at all.
correct.
No.
We should just say, because we get a request, we come to the city, we tell them to go to the city, and the city.
Well, this
approves.
whole thing about annexation, that the majority of the property owners have to sign it, has nothing to do with you. It
Yeah,
has, it's all related to the city.
Yeah. Is that what you're saying, Austin?
Yeah.
Okay.
that's- If
No,
anybody
yeah.
comes and asks for service that's outside of the city limits, they have to go to council and get a written consent
Yeah.
before.
Before we can accept it and
Mhm.
move on it. So you're going to revise this whole.
So
thing.
that whole 3.6, you're going to revise,
Mhm.
okay?
All of it.
Okay, so that then takes us over to 3.7. Combined services.
So we already have an issue with combined services before us, which is, I mean, this says that you have to have it must be supplied at the same time. So we already have where water and sewer are separate. So I think this paragraph needs to be revised or clarified on how we're going to deal with those situations. I know
Well-
we haven't decided yet, but
Yeah, because you've got combined services, then the next one says a council approval. So should all of those just be combined in the rewrite
A rewrite of the extension of
of the
service.
whole thing?
Yeah.
From the previous one too.
well, maybe, I'm not sure. But the issue about combined service is the fact that we don't have, our sewer fees are based upon our water fees,
Right.
our water meter. And so if you only get
Getting
one, how?
How do
Right,
you,
I
how
see
do
what
you
you're
bill?
saying,
How
yeah.
you do-
Okay,
So I think combined services probably needs to stay in there, but needs to be clarified as to what we're going to do.
And so Oyster Cove is the example where I brought. the
Perfect
rate, and it-
example.
And it
Yeah.
was basically what we did is we took the average customer bill of 4,000 gallons per month, and they will be billed ready to serve plus what that bill is.
Right.
With no consumption, obviously, it's just a set fee.
Mhm,
If we're going to set that as our standard policy, then we should put that in
Should be in
here.
the policy. Right.
mhm. Okay,
So you're going to revise
No,
that. to-
actually, that goes in your rate schedule. Because when we would say for services that are not combined, you would provide this flat fee that Austin just described would go in your rate schedule, I would say.
Yeah, that's a good point, because maybe we don't even need this paragraph if we just put it in our rate schedule.
I think we still need it. I mean,
I think
Well,
you could leave a
you-
paragraph. but
yeah.
yeah.
I think you put in your rate schedule, you identify what the rate is.
And just reference the rate schedule.
just
Add
reference
add exhibit
That's fine,
A,
that's fine.
see rate schedule exhibit A or whatever, yeah.
So I think I
Okay.
revise that paragraph to acknowledge that.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe what it should also say is that where available,
It says it's available.
Yeah, it does say if available.
And the next one in 3.8 would then be part of Austin, part of your
That
rewrite.
would be part of his
Yeah.
rewrite, yep. Okay.
Okay, and fees.
Mhm.
Again, we're gonna
Pull all that out.
pull all that out and put it in an exhibit. I mean, the wording, of course, tells you what you're supposed to do, but the fee schedule would be pulled out. Okay,
Now,
On the
No.
other,
go ahead.
on the other rules and regulations under
Yeah, that's what I was.
here,
going.
before we go to miscellaneous fees. There's a reference to service to the docks, boat slips. Are there any other services to the docks that we provide and are billing? Water or sewer or?
I think there's a water service to. the
There's water service there, which is billed, because it doesn't go into the sanitary sewer, it's billed at I believe it's billed at a
Irrigation.
irrigation rate. We have one pump station which is infrequently used. I don't know how that might be billed. I suspect it's billed as part of the public restrooms. I suspect it's tied into that. So I would imagine, but I mean, I think last year it was used maybe twice.
About,
Yeah, the pump out station.
yeah.
And I think that's,
Yeah.
I think that's billed directly, probably through our water, whatever we're paying for the net house
Yeah.
restrooms. Those are the only two services beyond electric.
So does that need reference or not? Or is it already in the rate schedule somewhere or?
Thank you.
I think it should take out the October 31st, 2004.
Yeah, I think that for sure.
Yeah.
I think you can also take out, earlier it says, it shall install 1 meter for new or replaced docks in immediate, with multiple boat slips. So you could say, just for boat slips, period.
1 meter or
Just 1 meter for boat slips.
for,
It doesn't say new or replace. You don't need the
in
word
other
new
words,
or
for boats.
replace.
1 meter for boats, period,
Boat slips, yeah.
boat slips.
Mhm.
Yeah, that covers it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. The next page is
Right.
charts and so forth.
The miscellaneous is the one that needs to be looked at by the finance.
Where do you see miscellaneous?
Miscellaneous is the bottom of that page you were just
Oh,
going in
Oh,
there.
yeah, okay.
So you're fine.
Oh, yeah, right. All righty, then we go past page 32 and past page
The impact. fee-
23
I
and
was gonna
past
say the
page
impact fee for water
24.
should be looked at and updated as well too.
Yeah.
That was 2002, I believe. 2002 or 2004.
Okay. Then we get to page 25. Credit card fee.
Wasn't that revised recently?
Yeah, it was a credit card. fee.
Yeah.
It was a credit card, use of a credit card over $5,000.
Right. Is that still happening?
No.
You gave that up?
Yeah, I don't think that's happening anymore.
That's good.
What, they're not using them or we're not charging them?
It's not being,
Charged.
it's not being charged the same way it was on a
Okay.
credit card.
So is this something that should go on a separate exhibit?
No, I would just keep the way that
Yeah,
it
okay.
is. just in
Okay.
case.
Just put people on notice.
Try it again.
Now, wait, if it's here and you're not charging it.
But it's not happening. It's
Oh,
still
I got it.
there. but it's
I'm
not
with you.
happening.
Okay, I got it. I'm with you. Go ahead. All right. Then,
Is there any reason to look at the number 2.9, 2.95%? Is there, do you know what that is presently? Is it?
They probably use that as a processing what we're being charged at the time that the policy was written, but we have a new billing system provider that has a new charge. That was
Should we,
one,
should we take a percentage out? Should we just say
like
at,
one,
at the prevailing
You can say prevailing.
charge rate?
yeah.
prevailing rate. Okay. That's
Does-
good. I
Does
like
the
that.
city, do you guys charge for credit card fees? You eat
No,
all those?
We are
fees?
not currently.
Okay. Are you thinking about it?
We haven't had a discussion about it.
Okay.
I like that.
Most typical charges are between 1.5 and 3.5.
Yeah, so that was sort of an aggregate, an average number.
I've seen 5.
Stay away from them.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember where it was.
Well, usually that's with, that's somebody who's had a history of,
Mhm.
I'm sorry about that, Don.
Yeah. I was thinking, do I want to get it or not? But it wasn't a big item.
You should pay your bills more often.
It wasn't a big item, so that's all right. 4.3, prohibition of certain payment types.
Two items on to third paragraph, fourth line, immediately report such disclosure to his or her superior and add to TO, the IT manager.
Oh, okay.
And the last paragraph, well, it says disciplinary action, including verbal reprimand and or termination. Is there any need to report this to authorities if appropriate? To add that, or is that just in the
Good point.
Lewes BPW judgment?
Well, there's, depending on what it is, if it's, I think if it's
appropriate.
sexual harassment or anything like that. it
Well, this
has
is
to be.
credit card fraud.
Oh. Yeah,
I think you have to report it.
Now, just take into account that the verbiage in this is exactly how it's already been approved by the
Right.
board on that policy. Because the resolution 21-006.
Right.
So like your addition is technically that's different than what the policy states. The policy is his or her, or not the policy, resolution. Says his or her supervisor and the IT manager.
If we change it. If it's appropriate or needed or it's irrelevant, that's
Well, you
the
wouldn't,
answer to the
but
question.
you wouldn't expect the employee to report it. You would expect the manager or the IT manager to report it to the police. So I think you're okay.
Yeah, and it also is kind of open-ended because it says subject to disciplinary action, including. So it's not,
Right.
yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
all inclusive.
So
And
we don't have to be
it's
too
may
technical
be
on that.
subject.
Yeah. All right.
But I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if it raises to that level, that's one thing.
Right.
Okay, administration review fee for development agreements.
Fairly new too.
Yeah.
Insert the review period per fiscal year.
We do that?
Are you on 4.5?
Or 5?
Or 5
Oh, okay.
Yes.
or annually, or
I was gonna say you probably want to put that as that would be on the finance committee to review annually before the budget.
Yep. Reviewed by the finance committee and reported to the board.
Correct. That's what I would, that's.
annually.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Fines and due process. That's all done.
New sentence. Oh. Those who are fined are entitled to a hearing. The information seems to me to be kind of run on. Notice of the hearing of the BPW's intended imposition of a fine or other punitive action. Such notice, not less than 10 written days. It's a new sentence. It's just kind of run together there.
Not less than 10 days written notice. You have something different.
Yeah.
You're saying, read that again, because it looks.
I think he's saying to make it 2 sentences.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
To be clear, you're going to notice, you're entitled to a notice, and that notice will be not less than 10 days prior to the hearing.
Straight from the chart.
Yeah, except for the yellow, which you have the option to change if you see so.
Thank you.
And it doesn't say where the hearing is being held, whether it's public, is there an appeal, and that kind of information in telling people what to expect.
Does it have to be?
That can probably be added in the notice, but we can also add it to this policy if you guys would prefer that.
But you say this is in the charter?
That's charter language. That's pool. You can see the reference to it right below it. Lewes BPW charter section.
Yeah, I don't want to mess with the charter, I don't think.
But you can't mess with the chart.
No, that's what I mean.
It's not quite that simple.
But we could add a second paragraph that says the hearing shall be in front of the board.
Yeah, you could do that.
And I mean, we could provide clarification.
Should be held public.
We cannot edit the charter language, but I think to Richard's point, what type of hearing is this? Is it a judicial? Is it before the board?
Let's say Mike's to provide wording.
Okay.
Yeah.
That Cameron.
Gotcha.
Yeah, 'cause I think
Okay.
it's not like we have a Board of Appeals like the city does, so.
Right.
Okay, improvement specifications for land development. Okay, let's see. Development agreements, there are various of them. Anything on that page?
On services,
Mhm.
you have electric, water, sewer, wastewater, but you don't have stormwater, which I think should be added because it's mentioned later on.
Yeah, I think that's,
Stormwater when applicable.
Yes.
512. It seems like this paragraph is redundant with lots of other places in this document. I mean, it says the Lewes BPW made its sole discretion to agree to provide development with utility services.
Is that just repeating the format of the prior?
And I can clarify on that because the development section was basically taking from examples of Dutchman Harvest Development Agreement. Mike basically said, go through and see what the most, pertinent sections would be that we'd want as policies moving forward. So some might be a little redundant, which we can obviously change in this, meeting, but for the most part, these all come directly from that I saw were pertinent as far as things you'd want to see in future development agreements.
Right, and
Yeah.
I recognize that we've clarified things like in the Dutchman's Harvest, but having overlap in other sections just, puts risk of interpretation of the language in two places.
Right.
And 511 would also include not just in city, it would include out of city, correct?
as what?
Out of city as well.
Mhm.
Development agreement applies to whether the property is in city or out of city.
Right.
Mhm.
Should we just take within out?
Or put within.
Within the city of Lewes.
Within the city.
Wouldn't it be within the Lewes BPW service area?
In other words, yeah, take out city of Lewes and put in within the service area.
Yeah, the only reason I say that is because you have Tower Hill.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
That way.
We
you're
do have a
gonna-
pre-annexation agreement on that group on Tower Hill.
That
Correct.
way you can
So put service area in.
service
You
area.
don't have a development agreement with it.
Yeah, the development agreement is between,
It's between you and them,
Right.
Mhm.
but we have a pre-annexation.
Pre-annexation
Right.
agreement.
Yeah, I understand. That's a
Yeah,
good
I think
idea.
that
That
makes
way you
sense.
do it all in one place.
Sign that
Okay,
reluctantly.
bonds.
Still,
Okay,
do you also want to add in there that it is utility services and list, all of them, but basically not limited to, because each one may be different. Meaning like Tower Hill is only water and sewer, but Lewis Waterfront Preserve is all four. Because it doesn't list, and here it doesn't list stormwater services, but obviously if it's in city, it's stormwater dedicated.
You're not going to do stormwater management for,
but you said where applicable, and when can you put where applicable about everything?
Provide development with utility services to include but not limited to. Utility
Okay.
services to include.
Or
but
where
not limited
applicable.
to.
whichever's. Sure. I understand what you mean. Mhm.
Or you can put that after in section 512.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Lewes BPW in its sole discretion agree to provide a development with utility services to include but not limited to electric, water, sewer, wastewater, and stormwater. Because at that point, you can have developments that take all.
When
four.
applicable.
Yeah.
But if you say to include, but not limited to, the but not limited to means it can be, if you say to include, that means all of them, but you're not limited to all of them.
The
When
mayor said
applicable.
about, yeah, taking.
When applicable,
Yeah.
yes. Well, that's right.
You couldn't apply stormwater management for Tower Hill.
No, exactly. That's why I'm
Yeah,
concerned that
yeah.
you don't.
That's
wanna-
why you put the.
You don't
when
want to
applicable.
say you're going to provide all these services when you're not. Yeah, okay. I got it.
Not reasonable.
All right, bond. Okay, that's right out of the,
Pretty new.
yeah. That goes all the way down to 514 developer.
On the first paragraph, developer must accept responsibility. Second line, installing and inspecting for all relevant BPW improvements, as opposed to inspecting all BPW improvements.
And what did you say it should be?
Inspecting add for, FOR, all, and then relevant BPW improvements. So it will read,
Why relevant? What
well,
was
as
your-
opposed to all BPW improvements, where are they? I mean,
I like all.
Yeah,
I don't see
okay,
being relevant in.
all improvements get paid, they must pay us. Mhm. Okay, anything more on that?
That second line, again, like Cameron said, that was pulled from the that specific developers agreement.
mhm.
So I probably wouldn't include that because,
You mean developer must, with that line
well,
there?
that's only saying the pro rata share of a project that's planned. So that's the Savannah Road Sewer Extension Project, which the board approved last month. But that's just one, that's it.
That's one
like
that
almost
only
like an
applies to
example.
one thing, in other words.
Yeah.
Why put it in a policy? So you take the whole, that whole paragraph out?
Yeah,
You could keep the paragraph, but change it to say pro rata share of a project that has
Oh,
any,
okay.
application to that project or something along those lines.
right, because maybe it should be for where we have sewer district developments.
Well, I was gonna say that could be pro rata share of water, sewer.
Or, yeah, I mean, if we're doing a district that we're putting in, this makes sense, but not for, because otherwise I could see people trying to go for the pro rata share.
Cameron, I'll work with you on.
So you would take sewer extension out and say planned improvements?
Let Cameron and I work on that one.
Okay,
We'll hash that one out.
Okay. And Richard, I found a couple of your previous finds. We've gone off in section bond, under bond, the paragraphs, the second paragraph on the next page. We don't talk about Lewes BPW. It's just, it goes back to BPW, 3 places there at least.
Mhm. yeah,
I see what you're saying.
that gets put in the
So that's one of the
It's
things,
put in the computer.
yeah, that should be a
Mhm.
word find thing. There's three of them in that one paragraph, and I think
Yeah.
several times later.
Mhm.
Press, I'm going to have to excuse myself.
Okay, fine there.
Okay.
I've got a 12 o'clock Zoom meeting, which is starting momentarily. And by the
Alright.
way, the election is confirmed. It's the second Tuesday,
Yeah.
second Saturday of the month
Oh,
of
okay.
May.
So we're
Thanks for
down
bringing that
to guidance.
We'll let you know if anything
Guarantee.
exciting happens
I
here.
mean, guarantee. I can't
I think
read.
we covered the
Key ones.
Guarantee.
On insurance, sorry. Is there a 30-day notice prior to cancellation requirement? Or something along those lines?
Where are you?
516,
516.
next page.
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
yeah.
That's one of those we'll probably want to put generic language in there because it's pulling from the existing developers agreement, which was the Dutchman's Harvest. So there may be some tweaking.
Yeah, it should be a minimum, and he's right, of a 30-day 30-day notice. Cancellation or change,
Right.
or change or cancellation, either way.
This is a stupid question. Do we require the same level of insurance for every developer?
There, it's in the,
I believe
it has been, yeah.
that's standard
Okay.
language.
It's
in every-
standard.
It's a standard.
Okay,
We just hand them a certificate of insurance and say, this is what it has to look like.
Wasn't,
But do we ask for us to be on their policy as additional insured?
I'm almost positive. Yeah, I think so.
And so double check that.
Yep, double check.
And as a standard of the policy limits, is it possible that those will change
Talking about
or should change?
In other words, do you think they're too?
No, and not necessarily now,
Uh-huh.
but with the so-called inflation and price rise and so on and so forth, is a reference.
Oh, I see what you're
to-
saying. So take this out and put a C exhibit.
I don't know what the right answer is, but just to
It's a good point.
think about how that might get addressed.
That's a really good point because I'm wondering if we don't want to change those sometime down the road anyhow.
actually, that's a good one, because that gets to my question, back to my question, is maybe we shouldn't put the limits in here. We should
That's
put
what I
an
mean.
attachment
Yeah,
with,
Take the limits out like we've done with all the other charters and stuff.
good point.
with the language that we require
Yeah.
for
Mhm.
insurance.
And that's true, because then you could add the insurance document, Exhibit C, and then in it, you not only put the limits, but you put the requirements, additional insured, all that stuff. So that's a good idea. Mhm. Okay, review and acceptance. It looks pretty good. Okay. Improvement specifications and design standards. Water. And we drop down to installation.
Is that 170 reference?
Under
And
number,
then, the code, yeah.
under number one, under installation, Lewes BPW attached as exhibit, whatever it is, to conform with the other utilities.
The developer,
The developer performs work under contract. This work must be done under specifications of the Lewes BPW attached as exhibit.
okay, yeah, attached.
Are we attaching the specifications?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
As an exhibit.
I think it's C.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to actually attach them or refer to the exhibits?
I think he has them set, does he have them?
I think if you're working as a developer, you should attach it to their application or whatever they,
Whatever we've
when
done.
they
to-
come in for specifications, don't they? I mean, how does it get
Whatever
started?
we've done for the other utilities
Yeah.
should be consistent with this
Mhm.
and if applicable.
I guess to Sharon's point is the question is, do we hyperlink the attachments versus duplicating them?
Oh, I see
I
what,
think they all refer to them on our website anyway. I don't
oh, well,
think
that's fine. I'm back in the
Or the
old
engineer.
pen and paper days, so never mind. Yeah.
I personally would rather see them hyperlinked.
Yeah, you're right. I thought they were an exhibit, but I was looking.
That's
He
fine.
doesn't list them as an exhibit. Yeah, I was wrong.
The developer can request, all right. All right, keep going, inspection. And then location and size.
That, the line item for the lateral connections, that's gonna
Where are
probably
you?
change on the following page. It
Okay.
references the code. The
Mhm.
code says 3/4, our standard's 1 inch, so.
Okay,
And the other question is that this section is moot on fire suppression.
Correct. Which that has the ability to change based on the size of the house. Could be a 2, could be a 3.
so would you put a ABC in there and put fire suppression? Or,
See, this is where it's referenced, the new
Yeah.
170. Is the new 170 references fire
oh, okay,
suppression,
all right.
what the city's doing to the
Mhm.
planning commission.
So that would be, you wouldn't have to put it specifically in there to, on a ABC and put fire suppression.
You would need to make sure that whatever the city has in theirs is what we
Mhm.
want reflected so that it's reflected in ours if we're citing the city code.
Yeah,
And once
okay,
again, the problem is that 170 is subdevelopment.
Mhm.
It's not retrofit or or infill. So.
So maybe we want to put our own fire suppression exhibit in there.
And Austin, I know we had this discussion with Charlie about the configuration. Are we requiring separate taps into the water main or a T off of the tap so that you put in a 2-inch or a 3-inch tap? And
So
you T to the domestic and the,
depends on each situation. So the way that it's laid out in the exhibit is that you have an existing connection to a main. So whatever's at the corner. So if they come in, take a house down and it's a 1-inch tap, if the 1-inch tap doesn't provide enough fire flow, then a second tap would be put in, and that would be a dedicated fire line. Then you go into, if the existing service is sufficient, then you can put the T in and run your fire suppression line into the house. And then there's a third, and the third is other. Because we already know that there will be an other.
yeah, because I mean, back and, this is the old days, but
Yeah.
back when I put mine in, I was required to make a second tap, separate tap. Even though I was making a brand new tap for domestic, but they had to be split.
That's where you get into a unique situation, because in a commercial setting, in an industrial setting, that's how they prefer it. On the residential side, there were a lot of calls made. There was discussions with the fire marshal, and that's where you got to how we got to today. The issue that we're running into is most of the time, if there's an existing tap, what we're finding out is a 1-inch service in most cases doesn't suffice if you have a house that was 1,200 square feet being demoed and you're putting a 5,000 square foot house in. So then you go into, does the homeowner put in a tank with storage and a booster pump, or do they put in a separate fire line?
Yeah, I mean, I back when I sized mine, the minimum was 2 inches for a 3,400 square foot house. So
And that's what, they do have some already. I think there's 2 of them out there that the fire marshal's approved with a tank and booster pump.
oh, and it's completely allowable. It's just a maintenance and
Correct,
it's
yeah.
a more expense than putting in.
The concern that I have is, I think maybe it has to be a discussion, is where that gets tapped into. The concern is if you tap it into the domestic line, which is fine, but what happens if the water gets shut off for non-payment?
There's 2 curb stops. In the detail, there's
All the
2.
time? I mean, is it a required, they can't?
Yes. It's a requirement that a T be put in. You have a domestic curb stop and a fire curb stop, and the fire curb stop has to be labeled with fire on the top.
So they won't, there's no opportunity for someone to tap in on the house
Past the
side?
curb stop. You're saying
Yeah.
from the curb stop to say the meter?
Yeah.
There's no possibility of tapping in there. If they follow the detail,
Okay, because that might be I think
I know what you're saying.
there's 2 of them, I think that's somewhat been approved, that there might be need to be clarification. That the fire marshal might not have been at the time aware of that. I think they were tapping where the domestic line comes into the house. They're just gonna tap right there where the suppression pump and tank is going to be, and tap off and right there, inside the house. Instead of
That becomes,
outside.
that would be an issue with the fire marshal, it seems to me.
But the fire marshal approved that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
my concern is saying, okay, what if the homeowner doesn't pay their water bill? We go out and shut their water off. Now this fire suppression is shut off.
Well, then maybe we need to put something in our
It appears they might be.
SOPs that say we have to double check that before we turn off anybody's water.
Well, the only thing is that you guys, the building side would have a detail that they would provide to everybody that came in and put in an application.
Yeah, because there's.
But even
there's-
though,
You can
I
get,
mean, the
you
city
get a little bit too.
doesn't, well, I guess that hasn't been updated yet. Does the city code talk fire suppression currently? As it
No,
stands
see,
right
that's,
now?
see, I think that's where 170 is coming in. And realistically, if you look at the plumbing code,
Nothing speaks to
it just
yet.
says it's just gonna be hooked up. It doesn't say how it's done. It's usually left to the utility provider to say, this is how we want it done.
But if they don't come to the utility provider, then,
And that's,
because they would have to come to us for approval.
see, because that's, again, and that's a point at this point. The BPW, I don't think is involved in any review of the fire suppression stuff. It's handling through the building department to the city.
And that's only for residential, not,
Correct,
Commercial,
because commercial
because-
goes directly to the fire marshal.
Mhm.
And the fire marshal, when a building permit application is submitted for a commercial building, one of the requirements is the fire marshal approval has to be submitted with it. So the fire
actually,
marshal.
commercial is less of a concern. It's more the residential side, so.
So with Joe,
So so what policy change do we have? I mean,
well, actually, you would probably put in this policy that there would be coordination between both entities at that point. Before it's signed off at the city level, it should have to be signed off on the board level.
yeah,
So does that go into our policies? Better write that in.
I would. Because then you go into a whole different bag of worms, because then you have the cross connection program with the backflow prevention on the fire suppression system.
I think it does need to, but I think we need to get the city's buy-in first before we do that, because
But it appears the city is putting it in 170. Because there is this discussion about the building department looking at it and approval from the BPW. So
That's
the new
going into
170 for the
170.
new appears to be
So-
My concern is about 197 or where else, where it's going to go for existing residences.
Correct. So it sounds like you guys can put that together between the city and so
Okay.
that's gonna go in this section. Where do we have, do we have to add a new section?
I think we had a part of up above where we said we needed to address fire suppression. So,
Okay, so just be
you
in
know,
that.
how it gets worded in here, I'm not quite clear right now.
Okay.
So Robin, would you talk to yourself?
Yep, got it. All right, so then.
You want
we
me to
go
schedule a meeting?
over to, The next page, sewer utility. Construction. Plans. Et cetera, the whole page there.
That's pretty.
Mhm. All right, location, size, materials, the next page, 31. All right, page 32.
Oh, that's storm.
Very little change there. All right. Page 33.
So 5238 stormwater runoff. This was this was a change in the code, the city code, going back, I don't know, 5-10 years. Because 5 or 10 years ago, they did not allow you to go under the sidewalks. And then they changed it to mandate that you do.
Yeah.
So there are an awful lot of non-conforming properties in town that discharge over the sidewalks. And my concern is that, are we setting ourselves up for an enforcement issue here? Because it says must not be discharged over the sidewalks.
This is for new construction, obviously.
Say that. Well, I mean, it's referencing 170, but I mean,
Bless you.
our policy doesn't say it's for new construction.
Well, a lot of the stuff is, everything that we're talking about here is for new construction. I mean, all these standards that we're talking about now, we're not asking them to go back and rebuild their facilities, redo their sewer and water and so forth.
Well, but a policy is policy, isn't it? It
No,
does-
but I mean, if we have, there's a lot of houses that have, but today illegal type of hookups.
Mhm.
We're not going back and having big homeowners retrofit them.
Oh, but I mean, when we did put the policy in that you can't discharge stormwater into the sewer system, that was retroactive. I mean, I did 2 years ago dig underneath the side, take the sidewalk out, dig under the sidewalk so that my cistern wasn't discharging over the sidewalk.
Yeah, we had,
I saw that backing up one day too.
Yeah, because-
That's why I walked by.
I know a property.
I
on
really
Second
did. I
Street.
saw it.
No, because the issue was is we were getting ice buildup
Yeah.
on the sidewalk.
So maybe you have, in other words, on this particular one, because there are a number of properties, as you say, that have a curve on the sidewalk and the curve and everything else, and it runs right down.
But I think, most of the stuff, we're not doing that too. So we have to be clear about what is and what isn't. If we do it here, we should be doing it other places in the section or just have a broad statement someplace.
Yeah, I just was,
That's the.
I don't want someone who winds up having an existing property to wind up being liable for an accident because someone slips on the ice and they point to this policy.
Should it be in ours at all? Or should it just stay in the cities?
And that's actually a very good question because we don't control it. It's the city that does.
Yeah.
And it's in the city code.
We just take this out.
Mhm. Because it's, you know, because in the city, it's part of the whole building process.
Well, because we're responsible for stormwater conveyance.
From
Once
the
it
road.
gets into the grade.
Right.
We're not responsible for what's.
I mean, should there be other
We
wording
aren't even
about?
responsible for this
more
particular
general
thing
wording
here, are
about Should not,
we? Yeah.
should be designed to installed to minimize erosion or ponding, or do we just take it out and say?
If it's in the city, why don't we take it out? Then we don't have to be responsible for it.
We both shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It starts out with stormwater.
Or if it's in there, it needs to be the same, because the wording is different from here than it is to 170.
Should we just refer to the cities?
That's a good idea. Stormwater runoff and then C,
Stormwater runoff is, I don't know, rain on somebody's property, which happens occasionally. And it runs by gravity wherever it is, and it's going to run over sidewalks or driveways. And it is out of BPW's control as
Yeah.
far as a regulation.
well, but
it
you say
doesn't-
C
but when
city
you
code.
Concentrate it by building a structure or have it in impervious section. You have some responsibility to control that. I mean.
Yeah, I mean,
No, not
this,
BPW.
well, this
no,
was,
This one says it does.
this was written with the intention, because back 10 years ago, 12 years ago, the leaders from houses went into the sewer system and they required disconnect.
Right.
So now you had people just putting the leaders out on there. To Press's point, how it's a concentrated source. We're not talking about lateral distribution of rain over a lawn. But you're
Right.
taking,
Well, but what about a swale?
but you're
That's
taking
city,
1,000
yeah.
foot of roof and you're discharging it at
Right.
one or
Yeah,
two
like
points.
on Second Street, there was a property owner there that we had to get after because he was discharging a sump pump into the sewer. And so we had him redo that.
But yeah, but.
And, but why don't you just say stormwater runoff, C city code,
Well, I think we just take it out.
or take it out entirely? That's
Yeah.
fine.
Don't you think?
I don't think it's in our jurisdiction.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Take it out, okay? Compliance.
See, okay, wait a minute. Let me delete. Okay.
All right, electric utilities, plans. Keep on going down the page until you find something you don't like.
Minus the nature. See, no, it does say here that the specifications are attached as Exhibit E.
Yes, that I realized when I sent this that I
Mhm.
forgot to, well, all of them are pulled directly from the website.
Yeah.
So the specifications are on
Mhm.
there, but I realized I forgot to add exhibit E and D. into this
Okay,
document, so-
Okay. So we're gonna keep
just
them,
take it out.
are we gonna keep them here or reference them? Right now, we're gonna keep them here, the specs.
Yeah, I guess the intention, it sounds like, is you guys would like to provide a link so it directly brings you to the website where these are located.
Yeah, I think that
So
would
there's
be,
only one source, right? That makes sense.
yeah, that should be a separate document, not part of this.
More than likely, whoever is reading this document is gonna read it online. They're not gonna have a hard copy. so.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay. Where are we?
So what are we doing? We're gonna take the exhibit out or just, you're saying
We're just gonna do a hyperlink, so they can click right on it and go right to the exhibit.
that'll say here in accordance with specifications. So we don't have,
It'll say Exhibit E, and then when they click on Exhibit E.
well,
it'll take
we're
them
gonna
right
keep
to
it, we're gonna keep it in the document then. I mean, okay, that's fine.
Which one are you talking about?
Well, I'm on a 5242, where it first refers to.
But in
exhibit
effect,
E.
it's going to be for all of those linkages of the fee schedules and the rate schedules and so on, that it's a hyperlink, it's a, a blue box,
Mhm.
blue wording. You click on it and it
Brings it up.
takes you to that schedule or
Mhm.
whatever's referenced
That exhibit.
with all the paragraphs and details on it.
Because I like it being in exhibits with the hyperlink
Yeah.
rather than forcing someone to look through the document to find out where the hyperlink is.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Good.
So any other wording there on that page?
But I think we should go back and make sure, and this is a word find type of thing for specifications and make sure we're consistent about referring to the hyperlink or the exhibit,
All right, streetlights.
What about reference or?
I'm just gonna say, we maintain the streetlights. The streetlights themselves would fall under the city's.
Yes, that's what I was about to say, yeah.
Right,
So
there are people
um,
who are saying, oh, I don't like that design, or I want you to have this kind of light in the development or at the curb or whatever. We don't want to get into that of approving what our standards are.
Have a
So what-
hyperlink to the mayor's email address.
I
Yeah,
want like million-watt street light across the street replaced.
see city code.
I don't think we,
But the city code doesn't specify.
I don't think we say
lumens
CC,
or-
because we had to do that for
See
everything.
city. So take it out entirely.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't refer to
The
city.
fact that we maintain them is not have to be in a policy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this more just about who's paying for the installation though, not in?
Well, if we help, we do change bulbs and all that stuff. So I don't know that that's a policy.
Well, is it,
Electric.
do we have anything in our specs about streetlights?
I'll have to go through and look. I don't know why we would, because again, we're not.
So this might have to come out altogether.
Yeah.
I think we do need to, because this is for public transparency. Keep this in relative to the fact that we maintain the streetlights. And they call us when a streetlight is out to replace it. And so, so we don't want to be totally silent on it.
That's what
We
we're-
want to take the portion that's in our purview and put it here.
if there's any discussion on changing out the lamp itself, the pole itself, or changing the light bulb to a different wattage or a different type, I just point them to the discretion of like Anne Marie and the mayor. Because again, I'm not changing out one light
Yeah.
bulb at one corner, which will be different than the other 20 that are in a development.
So what are
If
we gonna
we-
say? What are we gonna say? We're gonna say we haven't been referencing the city's code in place else. So what do we say about the streetlights?
But just that the BPW will maintain streetlights.
Well, wait a
Why is
minute,
that a
that's-
policy?
Not all streetlights.
I think we are.
Well, which streetlights? If the planning commission says, and makes recommendation, the city approves, oh, we need just a small street light in front of everybody's property, their driveway, are we maintaining those? Those are streetlights
I would think the
Yeah.
answer is yeah. I mean,
throughout the development?
If they're in the easement,
If they're city-owned streetlights.
When the developer has a development that the city says, you've got to use these small streetlights
Yep,
in your development.
yep.
if they're dedicated to the city,
And
we are then
that's,
responsible for maintaining it.
okay. I give up.
I mean, we don't have private developments here where there's non-dedicated, well, we have some historic communities, but going forward, every development that goes in, everything has to be dedicated to the city and BPW.
I believe it's in the electric tariff too. It's just not.
But my question is, why do we need, that's a whole different thing. We have contract with this, contract with the city to do this and that and everything. Why does it need to be a policy? I think streetlights, we maintain them. That's what we're doing, maintaining them. But I'm not sure why we need a policy on it.
Well, I guess I'm thinking more from a communications transparency, because we do have this split, with the city and who is responsible for what. And the city pays us for the electric costs, but we maintain them. And it's just out of that communication that,
Well,
if the public wanted to know, or maybe it just needs to be on a website. But it is,
well, I'm not totally against it. I'm just wondering if we don't want to, if we're not responsible for 99% of the streetlights, except for maintenance, we want to make sure that's what we say.
so we're responsible for installation of the streetlights if they're damaged, right?
Yeah, we'll need to modify the tariff, because the tariff says in the case of a planned area development, the customer developer will provide it for and pay for the design, procurement of the materials and supplies and labor associated with the installation of the streetlights. All designs must be approved by the Lewes Board of Public Works prior to installation. We don't believe that the city would approve those, and then they would be dedicated to the city.
Well, then maybe I didn't realize. So that's another issue.
So we are already obligated to approve the street light spec?
As what's in the tariff today, it says that all designs must be approved by the BPW.
Well, and
Prior.
frankly, it is that way because when GMB reviews the
Yeah.
plans,
The review,
the plans include the specs for the streetlights.
Yeah.
And so
I think we're trying to
GMB
provide
on
clarity.
behalf of the city and BPW approves them.
I think what we would do here is just provide clarity to
Okay,
street lights.
so you would change the paragraph to put the kinds of things that we are responsible for.
Well, you can basically say that the street lights, if it's, I mean, you could slice this 10 different ways.
That's my concern, yeah. And if you leave something out, whatever.
Can we just say something that the BPW will maintain the city's streetlights?
You could probably put currently the BPW.
That points out that
maintains the
they're not our
city
streetlights.
I'm sorry, I want to make a big deal out of this. I mean, I'm just looking for clarity of, this split once again, where the city owns parts of things and we own parts of things. I mean, own meaning responsible for.
Well, I'm just looking for wording. I agree with you, but I mean,
So we're not approving anything
lights. Technically, we are.
through GMB
Yes,
only. It doesn't come to the board or to the general manager. Oh, yeah, this looks nice. And
But it
we'll
does.
approve.
It comes back to like Rhett and myself. We'll look at it,
Right.
but we're approving the design of the streetlight, but we're not approving the streetlight itself. Does that make sense? So like the location of them, we're not sitting there approving, okay, we want, a manufacturer with a
Right.
light. We're not getting it. I mean, we don't get involved in that. It's mainly just saying, okay, the electric that they have in the design suffices for serving that street light, and the location and the orientation of the conduit to serve that street light's fine.
So it's like a technical
yeah, it's a technical
compatibility
specification, that
with.
it's UL approved and.
Right, well, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of a way to just be clear
Sharon, you get all the
without,
minutes? on this?
without missing
saying
something.
we're approving something,
The city's
you know,
approving
we
it.
are,
But yeah, I want all the.
We're
Can't you say
determining
something like streetlights, the city and the
compatibility.
BPW work together?
of the
Where it gets confusing,
material, the item.
This reminds me of a conversation. But a street.
Sharon, there's no question,
But
right?
No.
Just
the,
double check.
like,
Because Tim's still
Monroe.
on.
not pay for it.
Monroe.
Yes, it is.
They argue for about half an hour about who's gonna pay
Yeah,
$5
so
a
if-
month
if they have a
for the
question, they'll
street
pop
light,
up on
not the
bottom,
street light, but the
um,
traffic light on Monroe Avenue.
But she was referring.
Where it gets confusing is GMB is both our engineer and the city's engineer.
Okay.
And so when they review the plans and they make the comments and recommendations, they're making it on both sides.
Right.
So they're approving the streetlights from lumens and spacing and everything else.
Right,
But in reality, that's for the city
right.
How about? I just
responsibilities.
put in
They're
there
also
something
approving
about
the streetlights from,
Streetlights, the city and the BPW
it
work
meets
together.
the requirements for connecting to our electrical
And
system.
because if you
Okay.
start saying, well, we're paying
And
maintenance, well. but
When
we're
they've
also for
accomplished that
These particular
recommendation,
things,
that
we also.
approve the process you
Because,
just
oh, for this over here, we got-
stated,
otherwise, we're gonna get into,
then it comes
I know.
to
and this is a
Austin
policy
So we'll have
situation.
to say,
Why don't we just say
Yeah,
something
that's
about,
right.
we're just gonna cooperate, the city at streetlights, the city and the BPW cooperate on everything about streetlights. You know, if you start saying, okay, well, we're responsible for design, well, we're we're only for here, not for there. And so you get, all of a sudden, you're gonna go nuts. When you have something like this where there you split and then we say, okay, well, we'll take care of it for you.
Yeah,
And
we
the
need
city
to
will say,
update.
well, we'll take care of it for you. or
We'll need to
whatever.
update the electric spec. I think that's the easiest way to handle
What's
this.
that?
The electric spec, because if I'm just reading my dates, I mean,
I just want the public to know who to call to get the streetlight replaced when it burns out.
Hyperlink to the mayor.
Hyperlink to the president of the board.
Well, you could put in there,
this update.
call the BPW if it burns out.
That's really where I started off.
Well,
on this.
I mean, that doesn't say that we aren't responsible for other things, but for that, you can call the BPW. I don't mind putting that in there.
That's not something that would go into a policy, would it?
I
All
don't
right,
think
then-
so.
Then let's leave it out. That's fine.
Well, we're gonna let Austin fool with it a little bit. All right.
Technically, it's in the tariff, so it is a policy. We just need to adjust it.
Its
The wording.
complexity is that it's in the tariff and it's also in street lighting cable spec, all street lighting cable.
Well,
You mean
Can-
streetlights is in the tariff?
Yes.
And it
Can-
says in the BPW's
Let's
tariff.
dump this on you and
So,
Mike.
well, we say, see the
work out.
tariff.
Yes.
Okay?
And Cameron,
Hyperlink.
I can't leave Matt in this.
Hyperlink the tariff.
Appreciate it.
And Robin. What the hell, right?
Leave it-
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Leave it to our general manager and our council
Yes, good idea.
to provide. Another dump.
We're asking them to provide clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And that all occurred
Asking
on
an
the last
attorney for
page.
clarity is a,
That all occurred on the last item on the last page.
all right.
Anything else? We have if not, I'll take a motion to go into executive session.
Okay,
we need to make a call.
so moved.
We need to make a
Call
call.
to the public? Yeah, I think there's a public hearing.
Is there anyone?
Can we
There
see who's?
is, but there's no questions. No questions.
Okay. Anything else? So,
Press.
well, call to the press. but
Yeah.
Press.
This is a workshop. so-
Here, press.
No,
Can I make one comment that something that you guys said earlier? I just want to double check on something.
Go.
I believe it was section 315, I think. Let me double check with you.
Going back.
This is attached. You have to memorize it. So
What was
But I
the-
highlighted here. So it was about the underground connection because it had to do with one of the policies
Oh, yeah.
that I double checked and it is, let me just get the section for you first.
Sorry.
you're talking about 313.
313, yeah. me see. Yes, so I double checked. This is the exact language within the 1902 resolution. So I just wanted to get clarification on what you wanted it to change to, because all I had in my notes was basically to refer to the resolution explicitly what it says there. But I think you mentioned that it should be the customer's obligation to pay for the underground service, which I know is also, it's mentioned in one of the other sections here that I highlighted.
It was pretty detailed when we did the resolution.
Yeah.
So is there, because this is the language in the resolution. Is there something else that we should add to?
What didn't we like about the resolution?
The,
Clarity of who pays.
yeah, who's responsible?
So add in there basically to clarify that it's on the customer. Okay, gotcha. Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Yeah, and Boston, because once again, I can't remember where it used to be stated that the BPW was responsible for overhead drops to the meter. But for
Yes.
underground, it was the customer's responsibility to pay for the cable from the meter to the top of the pole.
We were on, yeah, as I remember it, we were responsible for the drop, period,
Oh, if it was overhead,
from the pole down.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
But if it was an underground,
And then the connection was responsible, the homeowner was responsible for that.
but if it was an underground
Yeah,
drop,
if it's, because they had to go if it had to go underground, which was specified, then the homeowner had to pay for it, up to the pole.
yeah, up to the top of the pole.
Oh, I thought we were responsible for the drop, period.
No, because there is no
Actually drop on
junction.
an overhead.
I mean, it's a continuous cable from the meter
But how
underground
do
and up
where do
the
you,
pole.
doesn't the wire have to come down to get to the underground?
Yeah, but
There's no
that's
break
one,
there.
one continuous line.
One continuous wire.
Your terminations.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It,
There's no
yeah, yeah.
splice.
It's, you don't cut it off there at the
Right.
pole and say, okay, now we hook them up.
Yeah.
I got it. Okay.
All right. We finished?
Yeah, let me
Yeah.
look. We'll look into that.
Okay.
Do I have a motion to go into?
So
executive
moved.
session?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, approved.